Okay, Numbers 32. The tribes are about to cross the river. Like, we've been about to cross the river for a while. The Bible's been getting into a lot of detail here, and it will continue to get into some detail. But right here, the tribes are about to cross over, but there's this wonderful land that they're just to the east of the Jordan River, okay? And so they're three tribes, or two tribes and a half tribe. And we're going to read that real quick. The children of Reuben and the children of Gad, and had a very great multitude of livestock. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, indeed the region was a place of livestock. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Atroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimram, Heshbon, Elilah, Shebam, Nebo, and beyond, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel, is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. Therefore they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan. Now, so what is their reasoning for wanting to stay on this side of the Jordan, not to go into the promised land? What did they say?
The property that was made for cows.
It was made for cattle. And these two tribes have got a lot of cattle. I mean, they just overflowing with cattle. And so they're like, why don't we just stay here? We've already conquered the inhabitants. Why don't we just stay here? And then the rest of you could go on into the promised land. Now, I started to think, were they sinning? Were these two tribes sinning because they didn't go ahead and go into the promised land? Now, I looked high and low and everywhere, and the answer is no. I got a point to bring out of this, okay? Let's read what Moses' reaction is when he hears what they're saying to him. So in verse 6, and Moses said to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war while you sit here? Now why will you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over to the land which the Lord has given them? Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, so they did not go into the land which the Lord had given them. So the Lord's anger was aroused on that day, and he swore an oath, saying, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt from 20 years old and above shall see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, except Caleb the son of Shephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, and they shall have wholly followed the Lord. So the Lord's anger was aroused against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was gone. And look, you have risen in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will once again leave them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all the people. What was Moses' reaction to hearing this? Let me sum it up. Oh, not you too. Okay? How dare you? You're reliving the sin of your fathers. But they went, hold on, Moses, hear us out. And they said, we want to put our children here. We want to fortify these cities. We want to just take this land that the Lord has given us. We want to live in here, our tribes. But we will go over there and fight with the rest of them until all of their land has been secured. Then we will come back and live with our children and our wives in these cities. And Moses said, oh.
If you'd said that in the first place, this wouldn't have gotten to that point.
Okay? And that's basically he says, okay, if you're making an oath with me that you will go and fight and help your brothers and your brothers get their land, when all of that's done, then you will come back and I'll leave word for Eleazar the priest for that to be done like that. And everything is okay. And when we read the scripture, the Lord blessed them. Okay? Because and the reason why I was thinking, well, were they sinning? Because the Lord had given them the promised land. Why didn't they go in? Well, because the Lord had blessed them here too. And this thing kind of hit me, while I was thinking. I'm taking this from a preacher boy perspective that went off to Bible college, okay? And every preacher, I would say almost every preacher boy that goes off to Bible college is thinking, I'm going to have a degree, and I'm going to have I'll have this degree, and one day I'm going to be the pastor of a 30,000 member church, okay? Let's just say that, okay? But does that happen? No, maybe one. And that's not the one that went to that school, okay? What happens is God puts us in the promised land and in other lands that he has given us, and he blesses it there. In other words, these people were blessed with the land that he had put them in such a time and place as this for that piece of property, okay? And God blessed them over and over again, because not only it wasn't that they didn't go over to the promised land, they trusted in the Lord. They went, I know the promised land is right there, but it'd be a shame to let this thing go to waste. We'll give God the glory, and we'll go over there and fight with them to get all their land. They can even have more land over there, because we won't be taking it. We're still over here, and they'll be kind of like a buttress, right? They're going to be on the outside corner, on the flank, going, okay, don't you dare come over here. And God blessed them for that. And there was a really famous prophet that we all talk about that was from this area. It's called Gilead. Which prophet in the Old Testament was from Gilead? Just say a name. Old Testament prophet. You got to come up. You got to say this name. Elijah. Okay? He was from this land. And I go, well, if there's not a way of blessing, that is definitely it, okay? Because you ever go to a place and go, well, so-and-so was born here. This was his hometown, okay? You kind of go, oh, well, that's pretty nice. That's pretty neat. Must not be that bad of a place, right? So this is where one of the blessings that they get is from that, okay? And so it's open field, but it's also very rocky, and you see the mountains. I don't know. I have never been over there, but how many of you have been to the out west, and it's flat land, and then all of a sudden the mountains go straight up? Beautiful, right?
What I can remember of it.
Okay. If you've never been, I really hope you guys get to go one day, okay? To me, it is like, I keep saying, I wish I could go over there in the summertime, and then I come back when the humidity's gone, come back down over here. It's beautiful over there, okay? So that is chapter 32. Now we go into chapter 33, Israel's journey from Egypt reviewed. And now chapter 33 is a chronological beginning to end of all the wanderings of the Israelites and where they went and where they stopped, and it goes through it all over in a summary, okay? Now, we've been reading since Exodus, right? And we've been seeing where, they've been going. Now this reviews all of that and puts it all in chapter 33. Then halfway through 33 in verse 50, there are instructions of the conquest of Canaan. Now read some of this here. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you. And listen to this. He says, destroy all of their engraved stones. Destroy all of their molded images. And demolish all of their high places. You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell in it, for I have given it to you, the land to possess. What is the top three things God said to do? Destroy all of their engraved stones. Destroy all of their graven images. Huh? Get rid of their idols. And destroy all of their high places. In other words, a high place is nothing more than just an elevated part of the land where they put like an altar and they worship there. He said, get rid of all of that. Get rid of all of that idolatry. You are my people. That shouldn't even be around. Okay? The way I kind of think of it, in a way, remember back when in Pensacola off of 9th Avenue, you got Sacred Heart Hospital, you got the airport right there, you have the little fire station. And then there's this tall building, right? It looks like a tower. You know what that was about, a decade ago, or at least in the early 2000s? It was a booby palace. What I'm talking about, it was a house of ill repute. Okay, if you know what I'm saying, that was right there in the midst of all of that, and it's just like, how did that happen? Okay, and then it closed down, and now it's a place of higher education. Okay, and it's just like, well, I'd rather have that there than that. And I hate to say, what I said to make it sound so vulgar, but I mean that's what it was. You're driving around, and then right there next to it, right around it, right there, there was an abortion clinic right there. Well, that's gone, okay? And you drive through there now, and you never think about it, right? Why don't you ever think about it? Because it's not right up there in your face anymore. You've gotten used to it, seen it this way. Thus, when the children of Israel went in there to claim the land, the first thing he said, get rid of all of those high places. The house of ill repute to me was a high place. Okay, it needed to be gone. Because what are those? That is worshiping of the flesh. Okay? You got them all high on the altar and you're worshiping the flesh. And God said, and listen, a lot of these pagan religions that they're going in there and driving out or wiping out, the sexual aspect in worship was a very huge thing. It was central to their worship. When Paul goes into and writes in the New Testament, and he's writing through the epistles, and he says, as some of you once lived in disobedience, and he goes through that, and then in orgies, okay? What he's talking about in these places of ill repute, back in these temples, they will have sexual acts that were part of it, and everybody was expected to take part of it. And I know it's like, well, we're talking about this in church. It's in the Bible, okay? You go to any part of this country where there's what I call those palaces, okay? And all it is worship of the flesh. And all kind of sinful desires take place in there. When we were driving up to Omaha, and we were driving through Arkansas, and I forgot exactly where it was, the GPS was taking us from one highway and taking us to jump on the interstate. We were driving through, it was near about dusk, and we were just coming through this really industrial place. And I was like, wow, this place started to look a little sketchy, okay? And I'm just driving along, and then all of a sudden I see all these women with like almost nothing on. They're just hanging around. I'm going, oh my gosh, that's in the house of ill repute, okay, And Balin goes like, what's that? I said, those are ladies doing things they should not be doing. And he caught on, he said, isn't that dangerous for them? I said, yeah, and a lot more stuff, One day the Lord's going to come, and he's going to take all the sinful things out of this land, out of this world. And it's going to be gone. It's going to be a thing of the past. That's what God wanted his people to do. When you went into this place and you saw the debauchery these people were living in, I want you to not only drive them out, I want all of those symbols, I want all of that gone. Why? I have a big problem with TV nowadays.
Social media.
Even social media, but TV, okay? We rarely watch any of ABC, NBC, CBS. We rarely ever watch any of that because you never know what they're gonna throw on the screen. We're kind of protective. Every now and then something slips by and we're like, well, I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I'm very ill with Star Wars right now. Who's running it? Because I was this is about the third time I'm watching the Star Wars thing, and this is so vulgar to me. I was watching one of the latest releases they have, and it was two females passionately, and I turned it off right then. I said, I am not allowing this in my house. I'm not allowing it. Well, you can skip over it. No. I'm not allowing it. I'm not going to let them have let them know, well, this was downloaded so many times. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not watching it anymore. At least that series. Until somebody else takes this thing over, because they are just ruining it. Okay? They bring, and see, when in my house, we don't want any of these idols out. Get them out. Get them out, because it's not so much I'm worried about me falling into anything, or it's those little eyes behind me. Okay, and eventually it's those grandchildren behind me. Somebody's got to hold the line. Okay, so that's what God wanted them to do, and He said, "You do this." And in verse 53, "You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell in it, for I have given you the land to possess, and you shall divide the land by lot as inheritance among your families. To the larger you shall give a larger inheritance, and the smaller ones." And He goes in to break how you're going to break up this land among you. But the main thing is, hold on, before I skip over it, let me not gloss over it.
55.
55, thank you. "But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall be that these whom you let remain shall be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land where you dwell. Moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as I thought to do to them." Hey, don't play around with sin. Don't even let it in the house. I was talking to someone, nobody in this church, nobody you guys know, just talking to somebody. They called me up and they were telling me, all of the issues that they've been having in their life. And I said, hey, you kind of avoided all of that. You shouldn't have allowed some of that stuff into your family life. And he says, well, you think that's bad? This is what I also allowed. And I was like, well, my gosh, you just opened the garage door and said, devil, come on in. Okay? I told him that. I said, and he kind of laughed and said, no, you did. That's exactly what you did. Can a devil come into a Christian household? Oh, yes, he can. Okay? You're never going to escape the world, but you do everything you can to keep the world out of your household. Okay? Some people sometimes say that, well, you're just a little too strict. Oh, really? I am? I don't think so. Okay, chapter 34. All of this is how the boundaries will set. The northern the northern boundary line, the southern, the east, the west, how the land is going to be divided up, who's going to get what. So that's all chapter 34. I just, you can go back in there and read it. And then there are leaders that Moses appoints to divide. Why is he appointing leaders to divide the land? Because he's not going over. God's already told him, you will not enter into that promised land, Moses, because you did not keep my name hollow before them at such and such when he struck the rock. He said, because of that, you're still mine, but you are not going into that promised land. So he knew this. God told him plainly. So he said, okay, when you get over there and you drive the inhabitants out, so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, they're going to be the ones who's going to divide this land up. So I'm trying to get to chapter 35. There was one group of people who did not get an inheritance of land, and that was the Levites. And what was their inheritance, or who was their inheritance? The Lord, okay? The Lord was their inheritance. But they did have cities in all of the different places of the tribes. There had to be a religious element to all of them. Somebody to watch over them, okay? And then, but in that, chapter 35, verse 9, talks about the cities of refuge. Now, this is amazing, right? Because God and through Moses is telling them, hey, there's got to be, we're going from the tribal law of doing things. Now we're going to be going into the civil law. Why? Because they were nomadic for 40 years, okay? Now they're going to be settled down in a land that God's already given them. They just got to drive the bad people out. And he says, once you're in there, there's got to be certain rules that you have to follow. And one of the things was that if somebody was a murderer, somebody killed something, what did the law demand? If someone killed somebody, the law demanded that the person who did the murdering would be killed. Okay? Now, we don't live in a perfect world, right? Accidents happen. What do we call that when somebody accidentally kills somebody? Manslaughter. Okay? You didn't, technically, that manslaughter is you didn't go out to kill somebody, but in the process of it, they died. You killed them, okay? Whether it was by accident or in the heat of things, you know, you pushed somebody or something, who knows? But they were accidents and people got killed, all right? So in this world and age, the family member, there will be an avenger of that person, whatever family it was, and they had the right to put you to death, okay? But the Lord in his mercy said there will be cities of refuge inside these Levite cities, some of the cities. If someone committed manslaughter, you accidentally killed somebody, you could run to this city and be safe in this city. So long you stayed in the boundary line of that city, the avenger of blood would not be able to come get you till you had your trial. And if in your trial you were found not guilty, you had to live in that city. So long you lived in that city, you would not die. But as soon as you crossed out of that city, then the avenger had full right to take your life, except when. And you read it down over here. I'm trying to find it. Okay, right here, verse 32. And you shall take no ransom from him who has fled to the city of refuge, that he may return to dwell in the land before the death of the priest. Now, what does that mean? The high priest, okay? Whoever the priest was, the high priest, the top priest, okay? When he died, by law, it was time to just forgive the debts, okay? It was, and that included that if somebody committed manslaughter, they were found that they accidentally did it, they didn't purposely try to do it, they can only get away from that city only when the priest died. When the priest died, everything was set back again. It was forgiven, whatever. It was set to zero. Then they could leave that city and live their normal life. And the avenger of blood had to release them of that guilt. This is a foreshadowing of what Jesus Christ did for us. We are all guilty, okay? Whether you purposely wanted to sin or you, just by being born, you sinned, right? What do I mean by that? We're all born into sin, okay? We're all dead without Christ, okay? We're all guilty. But when Jesus Christ came and he forgave us our sins, he called it all righteous. Right? He made us righteous. He forgave the debt, okay? So long we stay in Jesus, we're forgiven. Can we leave Jesus? No. You might stray, you might stumble, you might live in disobedience, but you're never no one can take you out of the hand of God, okay? So long you're in Jesus, which once you truly commit to serving Jesus, you will keep following, okay? And no one's going to take you out of that. You're protected. When you stand before God the Father, is he going to say, why should I let you in? I mean, why should you enter my kingdom? Is it going to be all the good works you did? No. What is it? If God was to ask you that, what would it be? I put my faith in your Son. You're declared righteous. Enter in. Okay? So that is just what we need to remember. And that was just a foreshadowing the cities of refuge. Because Jesus Christ is our refuge. Amen? All right, I'm not going to read 36. Okay, 36 we'll finish up next Wednesday. We'll be done with Numbers. This is neat because we're talking about female heirs. We had no brothers. Okay, they were the only people to get anything. What happens when they get married? We'll talk about that next week. Okay, and we'll finish up there. So thank you for coming tonight. Almost got through with it all, but have you enjoyed Numbers? I hope so.
What's going to be the next book?
I don't know. That's something we need to talk about. Do y'all want to go into another book on Wednesday night?
I want to do Ruth.
There was something that came up about I was to ladies that there's a Ruth in each of us. I was reading.
Do y'all want to do Ruth?
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good to me. Well, after Numbers, we'll go into the book of Ruth. All right, and we'll dig deep.